there's like a similar component to startups where it just feels like a game to me. And I feel like we obviously don't have like infinite lives, but we can at least keep playing the game and keep having fun with the game. And as certain unlocks happen, the game kind of changes.
Welcome to Founder Fridays, where we sit down with builders who've been in the trenches to talk shop, product design, and the real lessons no one puts into a slide deck. I'm Rachel, and I work on our marketplace team at Notion, where we help both creators distribute products and services built on Notion, and also help users discover them. Today, I'm joined by athlete turned designer turned founder, Taylor Pemberton, who's co-founder and CEO of Superset, a platform powering the next generation of health and fitness businesses. Superset powers over 40,000 workouts a month across 24 countries, and it's growing pretty healthily at 20% month over month. So we're pretty excited to dig in. Taylor, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Okay, let's get into your founder journey. When did you realize design was something you just weren't good at, but something you could build a business around?
One of my good first memories with design is I grew up as an athlete, as you mentioned, and I was always kind of coming home to stay up late on the computer, playing video games. I was just obsessed with the internet. And one of the first kind of bouts with entrepreneurship, at least within design, was I would wake up each day and I think email 20 people on Craigslist that were looking for a logo. I would just kind of go through this form template email where I would just copy paste, send it out to companies that were looking for a logo, and I would get a pretty small hit rate, but it allowed me to have the first chance at making money on the internet at least. I made a bunch of mistakes. I underpriced projects. I didn't manage revisions correctly. At the time, my parents didn't really take the internet or what I was doing on the computer that seriously. So I think for them, this showed them that I can actually do this as a career. And as I started to kind of improve that hustle, I started to look into doing design in the local community where I lived and eventually got a job, I think through monster.com when that was the only jobs board. And I spent a summer designing, essentially doing graphic design within a software company in Minneapolis. So that taught me a lot. This was also at the time that I was getting ready to go to college, and I ended up submitting my portfolio and applying to the Savannah College of Art and Design. So I ended up playing golf at SCAD, but also doing design. And I think this combined interest on top of just the internet growing and design shifting from kind of print to digital just made that career path a lot more substantial.
You launched your own design studio, I think pretty early in your career. I guess what gave you the courage to make that leap so early?
I think having a design studio as a designer is something that everybody thinks of at one point. I mean, scaling a services business at least didn't feel that complicated to me, but having worked in design roles in New York City and met a lot of people, it was a little bit more straightforward. I knew how to navigate projects a little bit differently than other freelance designers, and I was able to carve out time to kind of bring on a friend, bring on another friend, and scale things that way. So that was kind of how I did it. It wasn't anything super complicated, but I am proud of the work that we did, and I think it's extremely difficult to maintain. I also think just working at an agency is a huge exercise in itself because you just work on so many different projects. So it kind of teaches you how to work with multiple clients, manage multiple personalities, scope projects. I had learned lessons from working at other agencies, and then I kind of brought a lot of those lessons into the studio that I started myself.
After running your own shop, you went into kind of the corporate world, despite your rebel against it early on. You joined Airbnb, Spotify, Google. I guess, what did you take from those experiences that you couldn't have learned on your own?
I was essentially doing an embed with them for these kind of special projects. So I think I had it really good in that sense because I was brought in for like a specific purpose. And the big shift for me was that in my studio, I was doing a lot of like brand identity and graphic design and web design work for direct to consumer startups. So I think through that process, as we were also doing like digital product design for companies, designing the like core user experience, designing the app, designing the web interface just felt more challenging, but it also just felt like it was positioned more at like the business level. And I think for me, I'm usually hopefully always trying to figure out things that I'm like not as good at, and I'm trying to figure out ways to expose myself to that so I can be better and more well-rounded. And um, software specifically felt just like a much more difficult business challenge than designing like a brand or a website, essentially like a wrapper for the actual business or service. So that was the big motivation for that. And then I think within those specific companies you mentioned, I just got so much respect for the other people, the other designers that worked within those organizations. Like I met people at these companies that, are savage at what they do and they like don't even have a LinkedIn or a website. And for me, that was like super inspiring because I came from this world where like having a website and like promoting yourself as a brand and all this stuff was like super important. And I was like, whoa, there's actually like a lot of people within these companies that are doing really interesting work. They're solving really difficult challenges. Um, I also just like love how software you can quickly iterate and build products versus like building physical products. So there's all those advantages from an entrepreneurship standpoint.
How has your days as a competitive athlete shaped the way you approach entrepreneurship?
So I think there's probably some obvious things there of like competition, dusting yourself off, getting back up the next day. But I was actually going to bring video games into this because I saw someone tweet that like there's positive correlation between like being a gamer and being a successful founder. There's like a similar component to startups where it just feels like a game to me. And I feel like we obviously don't have like infinite lives, but we can at least keep playing the game and keep having fun with the game. And as certain unlocks happen, the game kind of changes. But gaming definitely has like a huge association for me. Being a competitive athlete, I think it's just like the years of exposure of probably losing and or winning at times and having some sense of identity attached to like wanting to win and keep going versus like just quitting.
What led you into launching Superset?
When I was still playing college golf, I ended up quitting and actually like pursuing design full time. It was just interfering with some of the opportunities I had job wise. And when I quit, it was kind of like the first time that I was in a gym without a coach or a team in place. And so I kind of like turned to what I knew best, which at the time was the internet. And I started like scraping together a bunch of workouts from like forums and blogs and in some cases just like printing things out and bringing it with me to the gym. And through that pursuit, I ended up discovering the first version of like the fitness YouTuber. And this is like 2008. So super like early YouTubers essentially that were selling fitness programs on their website, which was terribly designed. The programs or the end product that you bought was essentially like a PDF. And
Yep.
that was kind of the first moment where I was like, this like form factor of like delivering workouts and like helping people be successful at the gym could just be done so much differently, and that user experience could be a lot better. I think just like another big reason is that for whatever reason, at least like before the last 5 years, health and fitness companies have just been like completely underserved from a design standpoint. I mean, again, just going back to like the 2000s references, old fitness supplements, it was always like a tub of like pre-workout with like chains or like fire graphics wrapped around it. And that always just bothered me as like a graphic designer because it seemed like there was a lot of money being made. There was people consuming these products. There was obviously apparel being created at that time too, but nobody was bringing like a high sense of design to it. So I've just observed for a long time that design has been underserved in that market, and there's like a disconnect between being like a health and fitness professional and investing in good design. We're kind of giving them access to the same level of tooling that like an Equinox might have internally, and we're going to help sort of raise the tide across all of these different gyms, boutiques, athletic facilities so that everybody just has access to really awesome technology. So that's like a big motivator for what we're doing right now.
Okay, so let's go to like how design influences how you run Superset. You have described yourself as a generalist at heart. How does your design background shape the way you run Superset as a company?
I think we prioritize design in everything that we do. We, as designers, learn about like design and empathy and how those things go a long way with customers very early on. So I would say like we attract people that are creative thinkers and have that in our culture. Um, I'd say those are like kind of some prime reasons for how it manifests in the day to day. I tend to gravitate toward people that like may not be like classically creative, or they might be really skilled in like engineering or law or something else, but they have that like creative edge somehow, and they like
Hmm.
achieve that early on in life. So you can definitely like be creative and be like design minded without having gone to like design school for sure. Like I think if you have more of a business background, you can definitely accumulate design thinking through many different ways or creativity through many different ways. So if you don't have it, I think your co-founder hopefully has it, or other people in the founding team hopefully have it.
For early stage founders, how do you decide what not to build in a V1 while still making the product feel polished?
We have made a lot of mistakes on that front. I think like a large portion is just like talking to customers. It's obviously really difficult when you're just starting because you don't really have like a captive customer base to talk to. We've had a lot of people who have either like tried to use Superset for specific reasons that we like didn't support, and then we're like, wait, this is like a pattern that we're seeing, and now we're gonna like investigate this pattern more deeply. Um, Another is like not being too precious with what you've created and getting feedback early. That's like a big thing as a designer, like showing prototypes, keeping people engaged and updated. I think too, with at least like ChatGPT and other AI tools, it's much easier now to have a pairing partner that can play devil's advocate. I know people always like criticize AI that it's so agreeable, but I think you can really like prompt it to be the devil's advocate, so to say, or you can like start to press your own assumptions. Something that we also talk about is like, as a small team with finite money, let's say you have like 10 attempts to build features over the next like 6 months. I hope that we're getting like 8 or 9 of those right, or we better be getting eight or nine of those right as a team. Another like guilty pleasure of designers is like over polishing something or creating. You can create stuff really quickly as a designer, so you can just make stuff that looks awesome, but then you need people on your team that are like, wait, have we like asked those questions yet, or have we like proven that with customers yet, or like is there a more difficult problem to go after instead? And so I think you just become like more in tune with that piece of company building that just takes a lot of experience to gain over time. And also, if you're talking to customers, you're doing sales in a lot of cases. Like I'm doing sales calls, I'm like doing demos, all that stuff since we started Superset. So you know right away if people are like not buying what you've built, and that feeling sucks. Like it sucks to spend all this time. It becomes very existential of, wow, we spent 6 months building this thing and they don't want it. Um, so it's like you better get that right, and that way everyone's time is just much better spent, and that that kind of like cultural momentum manifests or compounds over time very positively.
What is your guys' tool stack in general? And do you guys use AI? Where does it fit in?
So yeah, I mean, we're designing in Figma. We use Cursor as our IDE. We use Claude and ChatGPT. Everyone on at Superset, we're a team of 9. Everyone designs and everyone codes, and those are like words in quotes, I will say. So depending on how high risk or high importance of a feature depends on like what you're actually doing within that. that role, but I just love this like idea that everybody is in tune with the tool sets and they're able to create stuff. I mean, it's also within like people writing code, it's good because it forces us to learn best practices within like the code review process. How can we just like work really well within the existing engineering team and empower each other to kind of take and lead different pieces of what we're needing. So like the website, we just like coded internally ourselves and didn't even really design the website, just like built it within Cursor. So that was super cool because we probably redone our website 6, 7 times now. And each time it's like me designing and my co-founder writing the code across the table for like 3 or 4 weeks. And it's always like down to the wire. It's a lot of work. And so it was awesome because this time the engineering side of Superset was just able to continue building more complex features. And they were able to come in at the tail end of the process and make sure that it was like integrated properly and that all the mistakes that we made were corrected, which was like a good learning experience for us too.
Have you guys used AI in your design process?
Yeah, I use it all the time. So I mentioned like UX writing before. I am constantly
Yeah.
taking screenshots and just uploading it to Claude or ChatGPT and saying like, what's a better way to structure this part of the flow, or like, pricing breakdowns, plan breakdowns, like how can I unify the copy across these different plan types? Um, Constantly using it all the time.
Okay, let's go to how you're getting Superset in the hands of more people. What channels or tactics have been the most effective in bringing on new coaches or gyms or studios?
Yeah, it took us a while to learn this. I mean, the growth people that I've met and some of the investors that led growth at awesome companies just like can probably relate. It's like beating your head against the wall 1,000 times and like seeing what works. It's also about like the velocity of how fast you're testing and like what the team culture is for doing growth experiments. So luckily we had like built that muscle a long time ago, and we definitely weren't very good at it to start, but the biggest thing that works for us is the classic offering free value. So we would do this thing where we'd launch a new freebie every Friday, and we did it for like 2 years straight. And what was awesome about that is it not only like established the muscle internally and like the expectation that we were just going to do this every week, but we were able to see like what rose to the top organically in terms of popularity because we had this email list. We also were like showing up on Reddit, we were showing up in Google searches, and then what we did is we took those like most successful organic templates and promoted them as paid ads. And it was just like an awesome process to follow because that would then help us get even more customers. And all those people would fall into the funnel to try out like this free primitive of this template. And then within Superset, we had like a more premium version on how to take that to the next level. So there was a lot of like sophisticated stuff built around that user journey. With gyms, I think it's the same thing. It's a little bit more based upon like the business impact. So right now, like one of the core strengths that we have is we can just generate a lot of business for gyms and for athletic facilities.
Mm.
And we're helping them realize that in terms of like a calculator or other sort of like business level tools that get them excited. And then it's kind of just this like drag and drop modular, like we're going to customize Superset based on what your business needs and get it all set up for you. And it's like super fast to roll out. So um, it's taken a lot of different work, but those are the things that have worked for us.
Yeah, I feel like client experience is huge. And I think if a lot of these businesses don't prioritize tools that also have a really seamless and easy to use client experience, it's like a non-starter.
For sure. I
Um,
mean, something we talk about too is just with like health and fitness, there's already this like natural friction. I don't want to go to the gym. It's like so many, that's the hardest part about like staying on top of your routine is just like not feeling like you can hold yourself accountable or or just being in a bad mood or whatever. There's so many elements that can get in the way there. But we're already like dealing with customers, or they have customers that are already dealing with that. The thing that we can do is not introduce even more friction in like the UX for getting access to like workouts. Maybe you want to work out at home, maybe you want to work out at your own gym. There's just like so much friction already that I want to make that whole experience like as seamless as possible.
Okay, let's go through some rapid fire wisdom for founders tuning in. Taylor, if you were to start again in 2025, what would you do differently?
This is a classic second time founder answer, but I would definitely focus on market before product. I would make sure that there's a large amount of tailwinds within the market and that there's a huge market to be part of. Um, Luckily, our market is massive and there are tailwinds, but there have also been headwinds at various times. So I think that's just like a big thing. And then also I would say probably raising money right away, which I think is like a not as common answer for a founder who has already raised, but we were bootstrapped for like a year and a half, and that just brings up difficulties depending on like your lifestyle stage, your own like ability to keep going. So depends on your financial circumstances, depends on the market. Um, a lot of second time founders are like, I'm never going to raise money again. I just want to like control my destiny. But I think there's a lot of different factors that play into that. So
Interesting. What's one lesson that helped you build better, especially in this AI era?
I would say like not checking out completely from letting the AI just do everything. Like I feel like kids who are in high school and college must have a tough time. The development of their brain, I worry about because similar to kind of like being born and cell phones exist, it's just like I don't know what that's going to result in. So I think like being part of a generation where we had to like actually learn stuff, not completely like forfeiting all curiosity to AI and probably like figuring out what is your learning style alongside AI. Like I tend to like to run into like a wall, get up again, run into a wall, get up again, versus like take my time and go really, really slow. So I've had to figure out how to like incorporate learning and like at what point do I need to learn something versus like continue creating something. So
Mm.
it's kind of an abstract example, but that's something that is new with all the AI tools.
Another question for you is like, what's been the most rewarding milestone thus far in Superset's journey?
The most rewarding is just like knowing that people are working out all the time using our tools. So like going back to the gym motivation or even like gym intimidation, like people being afraid to go to the gym or not feeling comfortable at certain gyms, just knowing that they have like a companion with them where they can like use Superset and get instruction when they need it. Um, I think you might have mentioned earlier in this episode, but like we power right now 40,000 workouts a month. So it's just super cool. I'm just like constantly inspired by the fact that there are coaches all around the world using Superset. We purposely didn't try to just be like a cool trainer roster for like New York and LA based fitness personalities. Like we really want to be your average Joe and Jane in like middle America who has like three clients, who helps like middle-aged moms be like a healthier, happier version of themselves. Like that's like a lot of our customer base. So I think that's a very cool outcome and something that just like is very meaningful to what we do.
I love it. Thanks for sharing so much of your story.
Thank you. Appreciate it.